Hey, Scotty from propertyadvice.com.au. Today we're going to talk about one of those topics that some people love, some people hate, and that's negotiation. Now, as a buyer's agent, obviously I negotiate almost daily for a living, and I have done so for the last 15 years. I actually quite enjoy it. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not, but there's heaps of people that don't like negotiation, and especially when it comes to property buying. Whether it's investment property or own home, doesn't make any difference. You still got to negotiate. So the first thing that you got to remember is that the agent is there to represent the seller. So if you're buying a property, okay, so anything you tell the agent is going to be used or can be used in that negotiation process. It's a bit like, you watch on the movies and they do that, they arrest you and they read you those rights and always do, anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Well, it's a bit like that when you come to negotiate in buying property. Anything that you've said to the real estate agent is quite easily to be able to be used against you in your negotiation. So make sure you're very, very strategic on what you do say. Now, it doesn't mean I'm not telling you to lie. I'm just saying you've got to perhaps hold your cards close to your chest. Now, when you come to sell a property, you've also got to negotiate, because you've got to negotiate through the agent with a buyer. So the other thing you've got to remember is that there's always motivations with sales, people selling and people buying. So it's important to try and get a grasp or a feel for what that is when you start out. So if you're really, really desperate to sell a property, you don't really want that to come across, and hence the agent should be there to help you sort of have a stopgap between you and the buyer in that process. But it is important to understand the limitations of what the market might do. There's plenty of times that you think that you've got the best property in the world to sell and you're not going to negotiate and you're going to just stick to your guns and here's the price, take it or leave it, and in reality the market's nowhere near going to pay for that. So you've got to understand the market timings and cycles even as a seller and also as a buyer, because you can't go in as a buyer and say, hey, I'll give you 25% under the list price just because I offer 25% under every list price that I ever look at. So there's not much point in doing that either. So you've got to be smart about that. One thing you've got to understand is that everything that you do is a negotiation. So we're going to cover some specific tips. I'm going to do a series on these lives, and I'll come out to you a couple of times each week, and we'll just do one tip at a time. But the first one for me is when people choose our services as a buyer's agent. Now, we often get asked, what do you do, how do you do it, all that sort of stuff, and then it comes to the fees. And then someone will say to us, well, is your fee negotiable? Because we just had the discussion that we're going to negotiate for them on their property and that sort of thing. And they'll say to me, is your fee negotiable? And I'll say, yeah, sure, it sure is. But I don't understand why you'd want to pay any more. And as soon as I say that, most people kind of have a dazed look in their eyes and they never ask me about negotiations or fees again, because the simple fact is that if you're asking me to go and spend 500, 600, 700,000 on your behalf and I can't even stick to my guns or negotiate a definite fee for our services, do you really want to trust me with all your money to go and buy your property? I don't think so. I think who's the fool in that arrangement, right? So once people realise that, well, okay, we understand what things are going on, and that's where we sit. But negotiation is a part of life, and no matter what you do. We don't see it as much in Western society because there's a lot of prices on things, but you go overseas and you walk through markets and bazaars and people just always negotiating on price. But with property, it's a big deal because property is a big price and there's a lot to negotiate for your win. So it's important to get that right. So keep an eye out for these lives. Hit the like and the notification button on our page and you'll get notified when they come out. And you'll see we're going to go through some specific tips on negotiation. I've got 10 top tips we're going to go through over the next few days, next couple of weeks actually. And we'll cover each one in depth and how you can apply it to your next purchase transaction. All right, that's enough for me, Scotty at propertyadvice.com.au, and look out for our top tips on negotiation coming to you shortly. Have a great day.